Dear viewers, today I would like to concentrate on a fascinating subject: why musical instruments are played during worshipping of deities or God.
ॐ नमो अनुकूलचन्द्राय ॐ नमो अनुकूलचन्द्राय
Joy Guru. We all know that in worshipping deities or God, various musical instruments are played. But perhaps we do not know the reason why the musical instruments are played. Are they played just to increase the glamour or pompousness of the festive occasion, or has it got even deeper or sophisticated or any subtle reasons behind? Now, I will answer this question at first in brief, then I will answer it in detail. In a nutshell, the answer is that musical instruments are played not to increase or enhance the glamour or pompousness of the festivity or worshipping, but actually these are external imposition in the hope that it will awaken the sounds that is already present within our inner self or satta or existence. In other words, these sounds are our inherent assets of our satta. This is the brief answer. Now, coming into the details. Now, playing musical instruments during worshipping of deities or God is a common practice in almost all sorts of religion, though according to Sri Thakur Anukula Chandra, religion is one, God is one. Opinion, or you can say the mentality may be different, but religion is one. But anyway, now from when this system of using musical instrument has been in vogue, that is, has been in use, I really do not know for certain. I think since time immemorial, you see, musical instruments have been, you see, playing in worshipping deities or God. As a matter of fact, without playing musical instruments, our worship is, seems to be not complete. And there are several musical instruments that are played during worshipping of deities and God, namely khol. In Bengali it is called khol. In English it is called tom tom. Then korotal, in Bengali it is called korotal, in English it is cymbal then jhaj or jhajor in Bengali, and it is in English it is a kind of dish-shaped musical instruments. Then ghanta, ghanta in Bengali and English it is called bell or gong. Then pakhwaj is another kind of musical instruments. Usually these are more predominant, abundant in South India than in the rest of the world. And then mridangam, mridangam is a kind of musical instrument which is percussion shaped instrument, almost like tom-tom. Then drum is the common musical instrument, but besides these musical instruments, another kind of sounds are also used during worshipping of god or deities. For example, you see blowing conch shell, which is in Bengali it is called shankhodhwani, and another sound in Bengali it is called uludhwani. This is a kind of sound which is made by Hindu women by moving their tongues within their mouth. This uludhwani is considered as a very pious sound or holy sound. Same is the case with shankhodhwani. Now, you see there is a kind of selectivity of musical instruments that are played in worshipping various deities. For example, within Hindu community there are different sects. Some are Vaishnavas, some are Shaktas, etc. You see, Vaishnavas for example, they do kirtan. Kirtan means is a kind of song associated with musical instruments. In essence, it's simply this act actually is for appreciating the god. Now, in kirtan, khol, karatal, that is tom-tom, cymbal, these are mainly used. But during the worshipping of goddess Durga or goddess Kali, you see using drums is of more predominant, it is more predominantly used. In other words, you see beating drum and Durga Puja are almost, you see, complementary to each other. Same is the case with in the worshipping of Kali. Now, what are the reasons behind these musical instruments playing? This is a very subtle, there is a very subtle and very sophisticated reason behind. We know it from Sri Thakur Anukula Chandra. Now, the place was in Devghar, in Jyoti Ashram, to be specific. Jyoti Ashram is a place where Jyoti Ritiks stayed. No other persons were allowed there. You see, and in Jyoti Ashram, Sri Thakur used to go there almost every day, at least once, if not twice. And in the, you see, on the baranda of Jyoti Ashram, Thakur, you see, made his discourses to Jyoti Ritiks in particular. Now, on on 1949, to be specific, on 14th April, while discussing different aspects of sound, particularly bhajan. You see, bhajan is a kind of sound sadhana, according to Sri Thakur, sound sadhana. While he was discussing on bhajan, Thakur observed that there are two factors in bhajan. One is called sound searching, that is Sabdhanushram in Bengali, and sound following, that is Sabdhanushram in Bengali. And he had clarified these two terms. Actually, there are clear distinctions between these two terms, namely Sabdhanusandhan, that is sound searching, and sound following. Now, in sound searching, Thakur said like this, that suppose a sadhaka means a pursuer of spiritual pathway to find God. When a sadhak, you see, is doing his sadhana in a solitary place, an absolutely soundless place, and try to, you see, and when he is trying to search sound out of no sound, remember. So, sound searching means that is searching of sound out of no sound. Now, it is possible if a sadhak, you see, goes on repeating holy name and goes on watching the picture of his love Lord or Sadguru, and if a sadhak searches the sound, then it may so happen that for a long time he does not hear anything, he does not listen anything. But after intense concentration, it may so happen that sadhak may hear or listen sounds, maybe from a very distant place, and at this point a sadhak cannot distinguish or cannot understand, cannot conceive what type of sound is it. But after intense concentration, a sadhak ultimately would see that sound is coming nearer and nearer, and different kinds of sounds, you see, a sadhak may hear or listen. And when he can hear all these sounds, then these sounds are so enchanting, so fascinating, so beautiful. You see, that the sadhak would get addicted, I should say, because according to Sri Thakur Anukula Chandra, these sounds are not, you see, present outside in the outside world. These sounds are present within our own satta, that is within our own existence. So, therefore, these are the inherent assets of our own existence. And when a sadhak can hear, listen these sounds, he would simply overwhelmed. And you see, there are different kinds of sound. Thakur, for example, he said like that maybe the sound seemed like chak, chak, chakat, chak, like this. You see, all these conversation, all his sayings you may get in Alochana Prasange, 16th volume. Remember, it is a kind of conversational book. There are 22 such conversational books named as Alochana Prasange. Besides Alochana Prasange, there are so many various other books also, but in you see, in 16th volume of Alochana Prasange, you will get it. Now, you see, what are the benefits of these sounds? As I have told you that since these sounds are the inherent properties or inherent assets of our own satta, and when a person can hear it, can listen it, then he can find or he can identify his own existence. You see, we are the first, and I should say the first and foremost question in the spiritual world is that who am I? Am I simply this body or something more? Yes, I am my body, that is true, but besides body, I have a mind, and besides mind, I have Atma. So, I am a three-layered existence: body, mind and Atma. Actually, in real sense, I am the Nitya Buddha Suddha Mukta Atma. Nitya means permanent, means it was there, it is now, and it will be in future. That is permanent, not temporary. Nitya. Buddha means my inner self is enlightened, knowledgeable. Suddha means my inner self is purest of the pure, and Mukta means my inner self, that is my Atma, is free. So, while a sadhak can hear all these sounds, he can slowly understand, he can slowly identify his own inner self, that is own inner Atma. And besides these sounds, so many other kinds of sounds are also heard. Sri Thakur Anukula Chandra stated like that sometimes it may so happen that a kind of shrill voice, a kind of heart splitting voice of bell may come, or a sadhak can hear such sound. This sound is very difficult to bear, because this sound is such that this sound, it would seem to the sadhak that this sound may tear upon his satta, that is his existence. Unless a sadhak has untottering adherence on his ishto or on his mentor or on his sadguru, he cannot maintain his conscience, that is, he cannot maintain his mental balance. And this sound of bell, according to Sri Thakur Anukula Chandra, is known as, or he termed as, death bell. And the Bengali translation of death bell is Biloi Ghanta. Biloi Ghanta, it is a very shrill and heart splitting sound, and a sadhak may not bear it. But there is no need to worry then, because this sound is also an inherent property of our satta. You see, according to the level of sadhana, a sadhak may hear different kinds of sounds. You see, there are some sadhaks who are in lower level of their sadhana, some are in middle layer and some are in higher layer, and accordingly they may listen different kinds of sound. For example, some sadhak may hear the sounds of blowing conch shell, there is sounds of conch shell, and some sadhak may hear the sound of bell, that is gong, and some sadhak may hear the sound of mridangam. You see, different kinds of sounds may be heard according to the level of their sadhana. However, according to Sri Thakur Anukula Chandra, he said that the sound of mridangam is by far the most pleasant, most beautiful, most fascinating sound. And now, so you see, actually what are the reasons that musical instruments are played during the worshipping deities or God? According to Sri Thakur Anukula Chandra, he has stated that you see, sounds are present within our own satta, but since we have forgotten the identity of ourselves, that is our satta, that is the reason why musical instruments are played during worshipping deities or God, in the hope of awakening those sounds which are already present in our satta. In other words, according to him, these sounds are just external imposition, so that the sounds of our own satta, you see, we can hear. I can give you an analogy. For example, in some patients whose lungs are not functioning, for them artificial ventilations are given. Artificial ventilation means this is a kind of instrument which will keep the functions of the lungs normal, even though normally the lungs of that patients are not working, they have stopped working. But using this artificial ventilation, you see, those lungs may again function. In other words, just to operate the functions of the lungs from outside, this artificial ventilation is given in the hope that the lungs would again function its earlier function, which has stopped for some reasons. Same is the case here, that is, when musical instruments are played from outside, that is a kind of external inputs, a kind of external impetus is given, so that the sounds of the satta may be awakened and a sadhak can hear this. According to Sri Thakur Anukul Chandra, this is the explanation. As I have told you, it may seem that sounds are present in the outside world, but the case is not actually so. I can again give you an analogy. For example, there is a kind of deer which is called kasturi deer. In kasturi deer, you see, in their belly a kind of gland, kasturi gland is there, and from this gland a very sweet odor, sweet smell actually comes out from that kasturi gland. But the deer thinks that this sound, this smell, this odor is coming from outside, and the deer actually, you see, roams around and actually tries to find out the source of the smell. Same is the case here. All the sounds are present in my own satta. It is true that this universe, these sounds are present. But in Bengali there is a saying, that is ja ache bhande tai ache brahmande. That is, whatever present in the universe, you see, that are also present in our own satta. You see, two terms Sri Thakur Anukula Chandra has used, that is microcosm and macrocosm. Microcosm means, for example, whatever things are present within an atom, those things are also present in the universe. You see, atom is very small thing, but then if we see, if you examine an atom, you will find it is a peculiar world, peculiar universe, because in an atom there is a nucleus which is made up of protons and neutrons, and encircling the nucleus there are cells, electron cells. So, it is again a big universe. So, whatever present in the universe, that are also present in an atom. So, we can understand that whatever present in the microcosm, that are also present in the macrocosm, and the vice versa is also true. So, when a sadhak can understand that these sounds are the source of these sounds, I should say, the source of these sounds are not from external worlds. The source is in our own satta. Now, when a sadhak can hear or listen these sounds, then a sadhak gets convinced, highly convinced, that spiritual world is not nothing. That it has something a sadhak can understand, because when a sadhak can listen, can hear these sounds with all his existence, when he can realize these sounds with all his existence, then he can understand that he has at least he has progressed in the spiritual pathway, and he can understand that yes, there are so many things in the spiritualism. Spiritualism is not something that is not worth pursuing. As a matter of fact, the so-called rationalist, I am talking about so-called rationalist, not real rationalist, so-called rationalist, they used to say that do you really know whether God is present or not? They try to create suspicion, they try to create doubt in the spiritualism, and they try to discourage a sadhak to pursue the spiritual pathway. But when a sadhak can hear or realize these sounds, then he would definitely say that, well, he would say to so-called rationalist that, well, you please go to your own world, own pathway, and let me follow my own spiritual pathway. So, this should be the answer, because this is the direct evidence. According to Sri Thakur Anukula Chandra, this is the direct evidence of the spiritualism. And when a sadhak can hear or listen these sounds, then he gets extremely convinced, and no one can, I should say, debar him from the path of spiritualism. So, this is one of the direct evidence, and I should say scientific also. As a matter of fact, Sri Thakur Anukula Chandra was, his mentality, his trend of thinking was completely based on solid science. He wanted to show everything scientifically. Not that it is not that spiritualism is all about imagination, or you can say kind of fiction, not like that. As a matter of fact, I myself have heard, I have heard from the old devotees of Sri Thakur Anukula Chandra, they said to me that they have heard such sounds. Not that I have asked them, they have voluntarily, told me about the presence of these sounds, and they have heard these sounds. So, therefore, and not only the devotees of Sri Thakur Anukula Chandra, devotees of other mentors or the pursuer of the spiritual, other spiritual pathways, they may also hear these sounds. It is all right, but these sounds are present, and these are direct evidences that spiritualism is not not without anything. And another term, as I have told you, that is Sabdhanushram, that Sri Thakur Anukula Chandra has stated, that is something another thing. That is, out of many sounds, you see, when a person can distinguish, when a person can understand the different kinds of sounds separately as well as togetherly, as well as, you see, as a whole, then this is what is known as Sabdhanushram. I will give you an example. As a matter of fact, on that very day, on that 14th April 1949, you see, a kirtan was going on in a guest house of Devghar. Actually, in Devghar, in, you see, parlor, Thakur was sitting on that very day, and the guest house was slightly you see, far away place from that place, but then you see kirtan was heard, and in kirtan the, you see, the noise of khol, that is noise of tom-tom, was heard most predominantly, and indicating that sound, Sri Thakur, you see, had stated to his devotees that, you see, that, you see, among all the sounds of the kirtan, you can perhaps hear or listen the sound of the khol. But remember, it is possible to, you see, to separate, to, you see, to distinguish each and every sound from the concert. If you simply go on, you see, repeating the holy name and go on watching the picture of your loved Lord. So, Sabdhanushram, that is sound following, it means that, you see, for example, that is to distinguish sound in a concert. You see, you have heard the term orchestra, where a band master is present. You see, he controls the different sounds that are played, and according to the, you see, instruction of the band master, different musical instruments are played, you see, in the same tune, and you see, in orchestra or in concert we can hear a combination of different sounds, but according to Sri Thakur Anukula Chandra, Sabdhanushram, that is sound following, is also a kind of, you see, a kind of sadhana by which one can identify, one can distinguish each and every sound among all the sounds. That is, he can distinguish each and every sound separately, as well as he can listen all the sounds collectively. So, therefore, it is possible. And last but not the least, I must say, all these are possible only when a sadhak, you see, goes on repeating the holy name that his mentor has given to him, and goes on watching the picture of his loved Lord. Otherwise, it is not possible, absolutely not. So, therefore, a devotee must remember this. So, in essence, I should say that musical instruments are played during the worshipping of deities and God, not just to enhance the glamour or pompousness of the festive occasion, but it is an external imposition, external is an impetus in the hope of awakening sounds already present in our satta. And lastly, I should mention the two sayings, that is of Swami Vivekananda. Swami Vivekananda has defined religion like this, that religion is the manifestation of divinity already in man. He has also defined education like this, that is that education is the manifestation of perfection already in man. Same is the case here, as Sri Thakur Anukula Chandra has stated, that these sounds are inherent assets of our own satta. Since we have forgotten our own satta, that is why we cannot hear these sounds. Once we can identify, once we can, you see, understand our satta, then we can hear all these sounds. That is, we can proceed a long way towards spiritual pathway. And lastly, I should say, in the words of Sri Thakur Anukula Chandra, live in love, joy Guru.